Hit create new world today and you'll get the most recent terrain. This will include these new armor trims which will help you look slim, or more realistically will help you customize and flex on your friends. However, this is something that will be a little tricky to do because these are some of the rarest treasure items that Minecraft has, and so how are you going to find them on any world, let alone one that you've already explored and has some chunks in it? Let's dive into each and every trim, the exact odds and possibilities, but also how you can find it in a world you already have. And we'll start with my favorite tip, which is when you load new chunks, those chunks will load as if it's the current update, which means even if you have a world from Minecraft beta, if you load it up in 1.20, after that wall has been hit, you'll find the brand new cherry biome. To prove that, here is a Minecraft world I last played in 2012, converted from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One to modern day Bedrock. This is a very old world, everyone should agree, I mean just look at this, but let's load it up in 1.20 and see how it looks there. That's a funny error. This looks like bad video editing, but this is just a common Minecraft bug where the textures get replaced by grass blocks. I don't know why. Look at how blurry that image is. Anyway, we're just here to load up a copy and show you we can get the new stuff. This is all terrain that generated in the Xbox 360 edition era of this world in 2012. It's 11-year-old Minecraft terrain, but yet here is some terrain from the latest Minecraft update. The meadow only came out in 1.18 and I can play it on this super old world, which means you can find new structures, which means you can find new chests, which means you can find the armor trims. So that's the norm, but it gets even better than that with 1.20 because this is an update that is mostly based around chests. This means that if you go and even explore existing chunks, maybe there's an ancient city below me, or maybe there's a jungle temple elsewhere in this jungle, even though I've gone past this and the chest is loaded up, the loot in the chest doesn't load up until after the update. So right now I'm playing Minecraft 1.19, but if we move this into the preview with experimental features turned on, there is a chance that in these chests I find the new stuff. Okay, we've updated, we're in the beta, let's go and see what's in these chests. I'm going to be very careful of the normal stuff in here. That's an iron ingot. And then behind this particular chest, I could actually die in here, right? And then behind the second chest, there's a lever puzzle you can do here, but I'm very lazy. And instead, there it is. Whoa! Did you see it? Whoa, okay, you know what? The odds of that happening are quite low, as we'll discuss later in this video. In fact, you're seeing the number right now. But honestly, that is a cool thing. I have an existing world with a jungle temple, which I've explored in the prior update, but because I moved this world to 1.20, I found the template. This can happen to any structure you've already visited, with one key caveat: you can't have opened the chest. Minecraft does something really weird and unintuitive to, the world of object permanence. It doesn't generate the loot inside of a chest until you open it. So as long as you haven't opened a chest, you can get the latest possible loot in it. And so this is a, wow, I've got to really eat before I make risky jumps. This right here is a woodland mansion, and this is a chest with a Vex trim inside of it. I was actually fairly sure I'd have to load up this world multiple times to just keep rolling the dice, but as you can see, wow, amazing luck. Yeah, if you have existing chests in your existing worlds that you just haven't opened up because maybe you don't need the loot, you can find things inside of them. There is no point going to existing desert temples, go find new ones, but it's amazing that you can find some of this existing stuff in your existing worlds. I think it's amazing, at least. Speaking of things that I think are amazing, oh wait, actually, you know what, should we go for a second one? Just in case. I doubt it's gonna happen. But if we did find a second Vex armor trim, well, we didn't. We got a golden apple though, which will be nice. Anyway though, let's talk about armor trims, what they all look like, and more importantly, how you get your hands on all of them. Because the simple answer of how you get armor trims is they're found in structures, but how common are they, which ones look the best, and most importantly, which ones you should be aiming for. Because ultimately, you can look for all of them and you'll find a couple that way, but you want to specialize very early on. Like for example, when you find a woodland mansion, you should be very excited because the Vex armor trim, in my opinion, is one of the best looking ones. Wow, did there happen to be a woodland mansion in this world too? I'm starting to think this is a YouTube video where I'm specifically trying to show you things. And wow, is this a netherite armor with redstone trim? Looks amazing. Diamond armor with netherite trim also looks amazing. I've seen people use this to disguise themselves amongst the evokers, and I love that too. I think, honestly, the Vex armor is one of the best, and it's also got a 50% rate for chests, which means ultimately if you have a woodland mansion, you almost certainly are coming away with the Vex trim. Something would have to go seriously wrong for you not not to. However, on the other end of the spectrum has to come, you know, just to go from one extreme to the other, has to be the next trim, which is Ward. Ward requires you not only to find an ancient city, and they're usually not uncovered like this, by the way, and also you're usually quite lucky if you find an amethyst geode in one of these, but I've got both of these things in the same place, and even with an ancient city this big, with this many chests, your odds of getting the Ward trim are still quite low. I quite like the Ward trim, but honestly, I think Vex is better, so look around for a Woodland Mansion is my personal opinion, unless you love this little face, this shocked. I think the chest plate is really worth going for. I think everything else is kind of worth a miss. However, although 5% is absurdly unlikely, and this used to be the rarest trim until they added, you better believe they went ahead and put silence in there. So silence applies to everyone but me, because I like to talk too much while making videos, and obviously, here's the fun thing about it, it is the rarest trim in Minecraft by chance to drop. It is a 1% chance. 1 in 100 chests in an ancient city will have these. On average, you can find about a half dozen to a dozen chests. So, you know, let's just say 9 or 10 for average. That means you have to go to about 10 ancient cities for the average chance of getting one of these. I mean, the actual statistics are way more complicated. You could go to 20 ancient cities and never get a single piece of this trim, but needless to say, this is the one you want if you want very trimmed armor. Again, look what a flex this is. It looks like emerald armor in Minecraft, right? I mean, look at that. You can see, like, it looks like there's boots on the leggings almost. It's ridiculous. It's, you know, definitely I prefer my slimming armor to this armor, which makes you look extra fat. But if you're like King Henry VIII, you want to look fat. Speaking of wanting to look fat, the next set of armor trims comes from the Pillager Outpost. And again, this is a type of armor that I think looks kind of okay on the helmet. It could appeal to some on the chest plate. Again, we're using two distinct types right here, as you can see. I think it's kind of nice. But overall, I wouldn't say I love the trim, but Sentry is incredibly common, so it's a 25% chance. So just go to 4 of these. Again, we're talking very loose statistics here, but if you go to enough of these, you will eventually find one, and it often spawns 2 to a chest. That is a really cool thing because it means that you can get your hands on a lot of the armor without having to duplicate it. Duplicating armor trims is possible, but it takes 7 diamonds, the original trim, and an extra block. In this case, it's the one here. And so, do you really want this? You'd have to question whether it's worth duplicating, but you can get your hands on a lot of it anyway. Speaking of things you can get your hands on a lot of, it's worth mentioning there is the Tide one, which is the only trim so far that is not found via a structure directly. So instead of having a chance per chest, you have a chance per Elder Guardian killed. Every Elder Guardian, and there's 3 per Ocean Monument, fun fact, will give you a 20% chance of dropping this. So in other words, once you go to a couple Ocean Monuments, you probably have this locked down, and in Bedrock, Ocean Monuments are very, very common, so you should do pretty well with that. So personally, I think the trim is like okay. It's not my favorite. I'm gonna give this a solid like, you know, 5 out of 10. I think it's like acceptable. I think you would be, I think it looks kind of cool, but it's not distinctive. If you go through all the effort to get trims and make a matching set of armor, you don't want to go kill, what is that, like 20 Elder Guardians just to have armor that looks like this, in my opinion. You know what you do want to have though? I mean, depending on your soul, you probably want to have the Coast Trim. So Coast Trims have a 16.7% chance of spawning per chest. Shipwrecks have between 0 and 3 chests in them. It's quite a confusing thing, but you can find Coast Trims about, you know, half the time if you've got a fully loaded boat, and it will spawn up to 2 times per chest as well. So this is another good opportunity to get a full set of armor, but again, I don't like it. If the other one was a 5 out of 10, this is a 3 out of 10. I think it looks really corny and cheesy, and maybe on low tier armor it would look better, but even on gold I'm just not in love with it. Speaking of things I'm not in love with, the Wild trim. I think Wild is again, we've gone better than the last 2. This is like a 6 out of 10. There are some nice lines on this. It's subtle. It looks like you know, like a small flex, and you know, 33.3% chance means 3 jungle temples are required, which doesn't sound bad, or rather, there's 2 chests in a jungle temple, so it's actually more like 2 jungle temples required. It's not so bad. Should we go in there actually? Let's see if there is. You know, it worked for me earlier. Let's see if it works for me here. I can't because of the Elder Guardian. That's fun, huh? But yeah, I think this is honestly not my favorite trim. It's okay at the very best. Speaking of okay at the very best, oh, that was not what I was expecting. You know what? I spawned in a hole. I don't have a way out, but I'm going to use my smithing tables. See, this is why smithing tables are useful. You can use smithing tables not only to put armor trims on, so pro tip, if you have some armor, like let's say I've got this chest plate on right here, I can put the chest plate in there with my Dune armor trim and, I don't know, like lapis lazuli, and wow, I can actually see what it looks like before I put it on. If I don't like it, I could put it on my iron helmet instead, and I don't think anyone should do that. I think, ultimately, if you're trimming one piece of gear, it should always be the chest plate. The chest plate is the best looking piece of gear. Like, look at that. Look what an upgrade that is. And ultimately, the Dune is the easiest to find one in theory. I mean, again, look, you've got a 14.3% chance, but you've got 4 chests per Desert Temple, plus the new Suspicious Sand. You will find so many of these, and ultimately it's a 7 out of 10 as far as the chest plate goes, and like a 5 out of 10 for the rest of the set. I think if you're just going to have one piece of trimmed armor, and for most survival players that's probably enough, this is the one you go with. Look how nice it looks on me. Oh look, we went with the same color decision. You know, this is embarrassing, I'll change. Speaking of things that have to change, I have to change dimensions soon, but to get there I go for a Stronghold, and the Stronghold has this trim right here. Ultimately, it looks a lot like the Dune one. In fact, it's almost entirely the same. I think it's a 7 out of 10. Some people might prefer one to the other, but they're very, very similar. The circle is a little bit classier in some ways. I think the unfinished circle is also pretty nice. It looks pretty great, and it's one of the best trims because you have a 100% chance of getting it in a library. And given that a Stronghold is not an impossible structure to find, especially on Bedrock, 100% chance is amazing, but also the altar chests, which are the ones you find in hallways. You know, there's a bunch of slabs around them and they look like this. Those chests have a 10% chance too, so you might end up with 2 or 3 or 4 different eye trims for a single Stronghold, and ultimately it's a pretty decent set. Again, mostly all about the chest plate though, but you'll notice that's the common theme across all of these. Speaking of theming, wow, are we going to the Nether? Wait, no we're not, we're going to the end. Speaking of the end, wow, this armor looks terrible. You go all the way to an ancient city, the end city. You go to an ancient city that happens to be in the end. See, it's technically ancient, it's just not called that. And you have a 6.7% chance. It's so rare. It took me so many end cities to find. And then it looks like this. I'd say it's a 3 out of 10, but because it's so hard, I'm giving this a 2 out of 10. Avoid this armor at all costs. I kind of like these boots. You know, I think there's like a little bit of charm to them as a solo trim or like to combine with a set. But otherwise, the set is terrible. I just don't like it. It's not worth the effort. Speaking of effort, did you know that you can go to the Nether and find multiple types of template, not just to make yourself some pretty okay armor? I think this is like a 6 out of 10. It's on the better end as far as I've rated so far. The snout trim is really great. I need to eat really soon, huh? But you can also find the Netherite upgrade. Oh, I'm totally dead. Okay, we'll pretend none of that happened. No, not again. No. Okay, we're gonna pretend that second thing didn't happen as well, and instead mention that, yeah, you can get a Netherite upgrade as well as the snout. This is a kind of rare trim, but ultimately, bastions aren't that impossible in the Nether, and some of these do have a lot of chests. So, depending on the type of bastion you find, you'll find more or less of the snouts, but ultimately you're here for the Netherite upgrade, which is a near 100% chance. I think it might be locked in at 100% for certain types of bastions. Anyway, so that said, you will always get Netherite upgrades eventually, but if you want to duplicate them, they're the best use of your diamonds. Upgrade your gear, have actually useful stuff, and then start flexing. Don't do it the other way around. You will regret it, man. Anyway, speaking of things I might regret, attacking the Enderman is high on the list. So let's talk about the rib trim. So this is what I had on my body as my, if you want to have slimming armor, which is honestly what we all want sometimes, the rib trim is the one that's for you. Let's hide behind this sign for a second. So let me tell you more about the rib sign. If only we could see stuff from this side of the sign. Wow, both sides, huh? That's a fun 1.20 feature. But yeah, the rib trim is found in 6.7% of Nether Fortress chests. In theory, that means that you go to 17 Nether chests, and you're great, and you're wonderful, you're done. In practice, it means that you have a hellish time and nothing ever happens. And so, yeah, I think that it's not actually that great. I think it's probably the best of the bad ones. But I'm not even going to justify it with a rating. Instead, we'll come back to the overworld and say, wait a minute, Toycat, aren't there 4 more trims you forgot about? And yes, so the whole point of armor trims is they're meant to be a reason to explore and discover your world, and so 4 of these are exclusive to archaeology. When you brush away blocks like this in the very fun-looking structure, what you'll actually find is an opportunity to get 4 brand new armor trims, and honestly, when you look at these side by side, they're all pretty neutral. I think, again, personally, side Silence is the best one if you want to go over the top. I think the June one is pretty good if you don't. And I think if you want the eye one, that's also perfectly fine. But the Vex is the only one that to me really feels like you've done something that is classy and, you know, actually fits together as a perfect set that I'd want to wear. Also, when you put it on an armor stand, it kind of looks like a face. Can you see it? Can you? Yeah, I can't unsee it now, so hopefully you can't either. But just in case you can unsee things, hopefully this video was useful and helped you realize that getting trims is actually, you know, getting armor trims is something that is surprisingly doable if you set your mind to it. If you run around your Minecraft world, you will start to pick some of these up, but ultimately it is meant as a hard to get item, and that's why it's so fun to try and do so. And if you enjoyed this tutorial and want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'm giving all sorts of tips that hopefully help you in your Minecraft world, even if it's in just giving you the raw data so you can do with it what you want to, because ultimately that's the most important thing I value, and so hopefully you value that data as well. And if you did, thank you for watching, and if you didn't, then also thank you for watching, because I can't tell the difference because this is a YouTube video. Anyway, yeah, have a good day. Bye. It feels so weird to be signing in on an Xbox 360. Just, oh, this console turns legal this year. Which means you can find the armor trims, but it gets even better than this. Maybe, might have to like, just Photoshop a thing on there, because you can't get the trims on the preview, and I can't get this world off here. But yeah, awesome. That's a good 2 hours and 8 minutes of work. love Minecraft consoles when they work as great as they do.